Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Sports Deep Dive Podcast. I'm your host, Rogers Harrison. I'm joined with my co-host, Mr. Brian Koperick. Brian, how are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. Just a reminder that the Sports Deep Dive Podcast tries to look at sports figures, mostly from the past. We really don't talk about the latest headlines or sports scores unless they involve something that needs to take a deep dive, whether it be leagues or players or coaches or anything like that. Also, the Sports Deep Dive Podcast is brought to you commercial free. That way you can listen as you're commuting. Maybe you're in the shower. Just give us a listen, and then you're good to go to maybe start your day. All right, so today we're going to talk about Lord Stanley.
Oh.
Brian, do you know who Lord Stanley is?
I do.
All right. Well, I'm going to probably tell you some things you didn't know about Lord Stanley.
You know, Rogers, you always tell me things I didn't know.
All right, Frederick Arthur Stanley was born in St. James Square, Westminster, which is part of central London.
London.
Yes, he was born in 1841, so we're going back a few.
Yeah.
In 1851, his father succeeded as the 14th Earl of Derby. And he was the longest serving leader of the Conservative Party. The 14th Earl served as Prime Minister on 3 occasions, from February to December 1852, 1858 to 1859, and 1866 to 1868. So his dad was quite the politician, as they say. Now, our friend Frederick Arthur Stanley, who we're talking about today, received a commission in the Grenadier Guards, rising to the rank of captain. So he went ahead and went into the military. He later served as Lieutenant Colonel Commander of the part-time 1st Royal Lancashire Militia, and became honorary colonel of the 3rd and 4th Battalions, the King's Own Royal Lancaster Regiment, in 1886. He also followed his father and grandfather as honorary colonel of the 1st Volunteer Battalion, the King's Liverpool Regiment, being appointed in 1894. And after his death, he was succeeded by his son.
Wow.
So it's a family tradition of military service.
Okay.
But I can see your eyes are about to glaze over, so we'll cut to the other stuff.
Well, I mean, it's important. I mean, that's important.
Gives you a little background.
History that people don't really know. Right. And so, I mean, I don't know. That was cool. He's in a military family. He had a definite military tradition, and he was a lifelong soldier. And stay with us, fans, because we are going to get to the sports part of our story about who the heck this guy is. Stanley served as a Conservative Member of Parliament for Preston from 1865 to 1868, North Lancashire from 1868 to 1885, and Blackpool from 1885 to 1886. So from 1865 to 1886, he was in Parliament, and he represented 3 different sections. Okay.
Now, in government, he served as a Silver Lord of the Admiralty, the Financial Secretary to the War Office, and Secretary to the Treasury. He served as War Secretary from 1878 to 1880, and Colonial Secretary from 85 to 86. In 1886, he was created the Baron Stanley of Preston. So he's not yet a lord, he's a baron.
He's a baron.
He served as president of the Board of Trade from 1886 to 1888, remaining in that office until he was appointed Governor General of Canada. Governor General of Canada. Now,
okay, now that's an important event, right?
Yes.
Because up until now, he's in England.
He's been in England. He's been all his life.
There's no hockey, so to speak, right? I mean, at that point in time, so...
Oh, wait, now you're talking hockey?
Well, I'm just saying. It's important that he went to Canada.
Stanley was appointed the Governor General of Canada and Commander-in-Chief of Prince Edward Island on May 1st, 1888. He was 47 years old.
He did a lot before he was 47 years old.
Yeah, and he's the Governor General of Canada. And what have you done?
Nothing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thanks for making me feel like a loser.
Well, I mean, I don't have to do that. I'll just ask your wife. She'll do that for me.
Oh, my gosh, Rogers.
All right. Now, during his term as Governor General, he traveled often and widely throughout the country. We're talking about Canada.
Okay.
His visit to Western Canada in 1889 gave him a lasting appreciation of the region's great natural beauty, as well as permitting him to meet the people of Canada and many Western ranchers and farmers.
Okay.
Now, as Governor General, Stanley was the third holder of the office to whom Queen Victoria granted the power of granting pardons to offenders or remitting sentences and fines, and the power of migrating. So remember, back in this time, Canada is not its own nation. It's still under
colony.
It's still under English control.
Right.
And so Queen Victoria said, all right, you can grant pardons to offenders, you can remit sentences, that type of stuff. When he wasn't running the show, he enjoyed fishing, and he pursued fishing whenever his busy schedule would allow. Here's an interesting thing. So we're getting into the sports stuff. I mean, he's an avid fisherman. He's a military guy. He's a politician. His wife, Lady Stanley, founded the Lady Stanley Institute for Trained Nurses.
Okay.
So she's big into helping people.
Yeah.
That was the first nursing school in Ottawa, and that was back in 1891.
Wow.
So this is not a shabby family.
Not at all.
She was also, here we go, Brian, you ready? She was also very enthusiastic fan of hockey games.
My kind of gal.
And now, Stanley's sons became avid ice hockey players in Canada. They played in amateur leagues in Ottawa, and because of that, both of them, Lord and Lady Stanley, became hockey fans.
Right.
Now, I don't know if you remember, but in a previous podcast episode, we talked about the NHL Original Six, and we talked about, Ottawa being one of the NHL's not only original teams, but is part of the, Original Six banner. So, Ottawa at that time is the hockey capital of the world.
Exactly.
Basically, yeah.
Exactly.
All right. In 1892, you ready?
Yeah.
1892, Stanley bequeathed to Canada a trophy today named in his honor as the Stanley Cup. So there's your sports deep dive, Brian.
There you go.
The Stanley Cup. And I'm not talking about the tumbler that you use to put your coffee in as you're driving around town. I'm talking about the big
giant cup.
Stanley Cup.
Right.
Now, it was originally known as the Minion Hockey Challenge Cup.
Okay.
The Stanley Cup was first awarded in the 1892-93 season and is the oldest trophy that can be won by professional athletes in North America. Right? Now, you're probably thinking, hey, Rogers, baseball's National League, part of the major leagues, was founded in 1876. What's going on? Well, calm down. Calm down. Yes, the National League of Major League Baseball was founded in 1876, but the American League didn't come in until 1901, and the first World Series wasn't played until about 1903. And I don't know if they had a trophy
at first,
and I think it came later. So yes,
which we could learn about on a future sports deep dive.
We could. I guess fans were going to talk about the World Series trophy in a future deep dive. Okay. The Cubs donor, who was who? Lord Stanley. Try to keep up. Was still the Governor General. I'm just trying to repeat this to you. It was originally intended to go to the outstanding Canadian team as determined by a playoff, and the first winner was the Montreal Amateur Athletic Association. So it was originally supposed to go to the best freaking team in Canada.
Right.
And it went to this amateur team in Montreal. Now, amateurs competed for the cup in the early years, but as a member of professional hockey teams grew, amateurs dropped out of the competition.
Because they're getting hammered, probably.
Well, also because of the fact that the cup became the sole property of the National Hockey League in 1926.
Right.
Brian.
Okay.
So, I think that's kind of neat. He's the governor, running the show back in Canada, and he's like, I'm going to do a trophy, and it's going to go to the best hockey team in Canada.
Exactly.
And then the NHL, took it over. I know. All right. The original size of the trophy was 7 inches.
Yeah.
And is now 36 inches.
Exactly.
And it weighs 35 pounds.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
Have you seen the trophy?
I have.
Where did you see the trophy?
They did they had the trophy at the Predators Arena.
That'd be the Nashville Predators of the National Hockey
Right.
League.
During one of the All-Stars things.
Oh, okay. The All-Star competition.
Yeah.
And it was guarded, hidden behind glass or whatever.
Well, it has its own, Secret Service people. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They're not actually Secret Service, but
I know.
The cup has its own people.
Its own handlers.
It does. It's pretty cool. I don't want to go too quickly on your thing here, but there's a lot of neat things about that trophy. So.
No, yeah. And I think one of the neat things that I think is that trophy, the winning team's players get, and during the off season, get to
every one of them.
Yeah, it's for like a week, and then it goes to the next player.
Yep. And the things that trophy has done and seen are pretty outrageous.
And I'm kind of amazed. All right, because so you've got these young athletes who are in their 20s, right?
Right.
The young ones, and then of course you've got the veterans who are in their 30s
but they're still pretty young. 30s is nothing.
But you've got these veterans, and they're it's the off season, and they want to kick back and maybe go to parties, and they bring that thing to parties, and girls go, "Ooh, that's pretty neat."
Yeah.
Do you have a trophy there, or are you just happy to see me? That type of thing. And so I'm just amazed that the cup hasn't gotten broken or lost, or you know what I'm saying?
So I think there are some times it's had to be repaired.
Okay.
I do know that there's some pretty crazy stories. If you go out there and Google, there's some pretty fun facts about things that the cup has been a part of.
Okay.
As times went on, there's a little more rules around, like, what can be done with it. But it's still pretty loose. Like, there's still fun things happening with it. But it does have its own people. And the reason that the trophy has grown in size is that when they fill up a tier, every time you win it, you get your team gets their nameplate on the trophy.
Yes.
And as they fill up a tier, they add a tier to it. And to me, it's just so cool that it's been around that long. Like,
did you know it's the oldest professional trophy in North America?
You said that.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that, like, they make a new Lombardi trophy every year. They make, you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't pass that stuff. Now, the Big Ten has some traditions of passing trophies back and forth, but no other pro sports league does that. So it's pretty
true. That's very true. But yeah, it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's finish up talking about Lord Stanley and the rest of his life. So his term as Governor General of Canada was due to end in September of 1893. But in April of that year, his elder brother, which would be the 15th Earl of Derby, died. Now, let's take you back. His father was the 14th Earl of Derby.
Right, but
and then
the oldest son.
And then the next son was the 15th, but he died. So Stanley succeeded him as the 16th Earl of Derby. Man, my gosh, what has this man not done?
Exactly.
He puts you to shame, Brian.
Totally.
Really. Now, as a result of that, Stanley is now known as Lord Derby. He left Canada in 1893, July of 1893, and returned to England.
To take care of the...
During the last years of his life, he increasingly dedicated himself to philanthropy. He was founder and president of the committee in the building of the Liverpool Cathedral in 1901.
Wow, that's pretty impressive too.
He died on June 14th of 1908. He was only 67 years old, and I only say only because now 67
is nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but back then, life.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was succeeded by his eldest son, Edward, who also became a distinguished politician. And just to follow up, Lady Derby, she died April 17th, 1922. So she lived a pretty long life after her husband died, Lord Stanley. Let me tell you about some things. The Preston Squadron of Cadets at the Royal Military College in St. Jean was named in Lord Stanley's honor.
Okay.
Stanley Park, Liverpool, an area that famously separates Anfield and Goodison Park, is named for him, obviously. The home grounds of the English Premier League football teams, Liverpool FC and Everton FC, were named after him.
Wow.
So this is more than just hockey, Brian.
I agree.
This is, Liverpool FC. Hello, that's one of the.
Yeah, that's huge.
So,
and that's one of the things I want to call out that is so great about Sports Deep Dive is that it really goes much further than what you would know. About a certain person.
Right.
We all know, Lord Stanley Cup, and it was named after this Lord. But did you know, you didn't know that he was from England. You didn't know, that he had done all these things, that his wife started this the nurses school, like all the things, like it's really cool to connect all those dots. And then
right, because you would think he was from Canada.
You would just like that he would had always been in Canada and all this, but no, it's not the case.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's all the information I had on Lord Stanley. I hope you learned something as Brian did. And Brian, before we leave, tell us where people can find you.
Yep, you can find me on. Wow, there we go. I'm on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook as Random Things at BK. Then sometimes I get the privilege of also being here on Sports Deep Dive.
Isn't it Random Things with BK? Not Random Things at BK?
Yeah, Random Things with BK.
Right.
Right. At Random Things with BK.
Right, okay. And I am on Blue Sky. I'm at 318 North. All right. That'll wrap up this edition of Sports Deep Dive. Be sure to tune in for other jam-packed episodes. So long, everyone.